13 points per game for San Antonio before his buyout. Gentlemen, take a look at the Nets squad. Please just marinate on these names, would you? Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Kevin Durant, Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge. That's just to name a few, all joining forces for a playoff run. Brooklyn seems to be heading for Max's super-duper team level, as he calls it. But Stephen A., are you getting turned off by the Nets stacking the deck here?
I am. And here's my thing, Max and Molly. This is what's rubbing me the wrong way. It's not the KD, Kyrie, James Harden thing. I got that. That's Lethal Weapon 3. I'm good with that, Max. It's not a problem. But when the names Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge come to my mind, that's what really irritates me about this. And here's why. Because I'm looking at guys. I remember the last 2 years in Portland, LaMarcus Aldridge averaging 23 a game. And he was supposed to be that glue, you know, with Tim Duncan fading away into the twilight before he was going to retire, with Kawhi Leonard being in, all of that stuff. He was supposed to be that guy. Blake Griffin, remember? I mean, come on now. Remember Lob City? Remember all of that? You were there.
I was there.
You were hosting. Yep. You was hosting a radio show in LA for 6 years. You remember Lob City? He was the cornerstone of the franchise. Both of them came up short. Never even been in the conference finals, for crying out loud, okay? Even though I think LaMarcus Aldridge was at least once in San Antonio. I'm just saying, when I look at that, and then I see you jumping on this bandwagon, it's something that turns me off about that, because you were supposed to be one of those dudes. You were supposed to be one of those dudes who was the cornerstone of the franchise that was leading the team to the promised land, as opposed to just sitting up there and just chilling out and having a ring slid on your finger. Right? You know, that's what I'm talking about. That's a turnoff for me. And again, with Kevin Durant, it's not fair, and I'll openly admit that to bring this up, but it's apropos only from the standpoint of just paying attention to history in that regard. When he went to Golden State, he went there because he couldn't capture the chip in OKC playing with Russell Westbrook. But when he went to Golden State, he was the man. He was still the best, even though Steph Curry is the greatest shooter we've ever seen in our lifetime, and him and Klay Thompson are the best shooter backcourt we've ever seen in our lifetime. Kevin Durant was still the best player on that team. We understand how lethal he was. Blake Griffin has fallen off significantly, and to the point where he gets a dunk and we're celebrating. It's damn near back page news. Okay, and now LaMarcus Aldridge, who just weaned out in San Antonio, suddenly he's on this team. And I'm just like, Dan, what's next? We gonna get the best ball player in the NBA too? I mean, what the hell is next, for crying out loud? That's how I look at it, and that's the turnoff portion. If those dudes didn't capture a chip, but was still lethal in terms of being straight up ballers, Max, I would have a completely different mentality. But the drop-off has been so precipitous. The fact that they are about to get a ring, right, under those conditions, I'm like, oh,
but
damn.
That's not you getting turned off by the Nets.
That's right.
That's you getting turned off by the players.
Right.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Then that's fine. I was going to say, if you're
the
Nets ain't getting LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin. They're getting the remains of LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin. Let's be honest. What does LaMarcus Aldridge do well right now? Was he going to get a 20-minute-a-game player? He can play basketball, sure, but he ain't LaMarcus Aldridge anymore. And by the way, he never really could shoot the three. He was like a deep mid-range shooter. It's one of the reasons he and DeRozan. It's one of the reasons the Spurs weren't better with those guys in a three-point shooting league. They're taking shots that are just as difficult to hit, but you only get 2 points instead of 3 if you make them. And LaMarcus Aldridge isn't even that guy anymore. He's a faded version of himself. And Blake Griffin, who knows what you're getting? Likely not much. So I'm not mad at the Nets or at KD. You talk about, like, this is the second time it's happened for KD now. This is totally different for me with KD. KD in Golden State couldn't get by Golden State, and then Golden State couldn't get by LeBron. So they joined forces. They're like, that's really about LeBron. Let's beat this guy somehow. Golden State won 73 games. The all-time record in the regular season came, a possession or two away of winning the championship, and then added an MVP player in KD. They'd have destroyed everyone with someone less than KD because they were already that stacked. That doesn't prove anything to me, KD. I don't care if you won Finals MVP. How could you not? You have to worry about Klay and Steph and everybody. This is different. KD went to Brooklyn off an Achilles, catastrophic injury, never knowing if you're going to be the same again. Brings Kyrie at first, went a year like that, Then they trade for Harden. There was no guarantee Harden and Kyrie would even be able to share a backcourt. You know, like, you have to take your hat off to those guys, the way they figured out the chemistry, and it took them like a week. So I'm not going to be down on KD for surrounding himself with talent, for building a team the way LeBron did in Miami.
Right.
That's fine. And as far as these dudes joining him, you know, you mentioned Blake. You can mention LaMarcus Aldridge. You can mention DeAndre Jordan. Nick Claxton may be the guy you want there. I mean, like, it's not like they have a lot. It's name brands. It's not great players anymore in terms of these buyout types they're getting now.
Well, see, Max Kellerman, you went someplace where I wanted to go. I just wanted you to go first, and because you know me, there's a method to my madness. Because you know who I ultimately blame for all of this? I blame LeBron James. It's all his fault. It's all his fault, okay? First of all, you go to it is hypocritical of me because even though I didn't like what happened, it was in South Beach. So why would I complain about having to go to South Beach? I mean, come on now. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just throwing myself out on Front Street on that. I got it. But remember when they won the championship in Cleveland? And then the next year he came back, you had D-Wade to the mix. You had Deron Williams to the mix as well. You tried to do something like that in order to repeat as champions. KD ultimately hijacks your run because what does he do? He goes to Golden State, and now he's one-upped you there. And then he won back-to-back titles. Should have won three, would have had a three-peat had he not torn his Achilles. Would have easily had a three-peat without question, okay? But then after that, what happens? Now he comes to Brooklyn, and this is what he's doing. So you've got a situation where LeBron has opened the floodgates. Thank God. Hopefully, AD will be back. He'll be healthy because with him and LeBron and adding Andrew Drummond, I think Andrew Drummond is a big pickup, which we'll get into. But in the end, what it comes down to, thank God, there's some level of competition. Because, see, that's the biggest thing. When I appeared with KD on the boardroom on this show on ESPN Plus from before, when I appeared on there, okay, what I explained was it's all about competition. I'm old school, man. I grew up watching the NBA. I've been covering the NBA for 26, 27 years. I've been watching it all my life pretty much. I love the NBA and I love competition. And you want to see people wanting to go against one another. And there's this culture where everybody's trying to join one another. And that goes against everything that I'm about. And I think that KD was definitely more significant because you joined a juggernaut. They had won 73 games and you joined a juggernaut.
But what Magic really showed these dudes is
Magic?
Yeah, excuse me. LeBron really showed, I'm going to talk about Magic in a second. What LeBron really showed these dudes, including KD, is that we can do the same thing the teams are doing. Because I think the reason I said Magic is I think about the Lakers in 79-80. That's Magic's rookie year, right? It's him and Kareem.
But they drafted Worthy.
But still, no.
It was a draft,
I'm not talking about Worthy, though. I'm talking about Jamal Wilkes, and I'm talking about.
He's already on the squad, right?
Norm Nixon, right?
Norm Nixon was already there.
That's right. And then they traded for Spencer Haywood, right?
Yeah, but my point is, it was draft, though.
Okay, my point is what LeBron showed the world and other players like KD is. You see the way the teams are the boss and the GMs put together? Because the Lakers had a super-duper team. Stephen A., did they need Spencer Haywood? Like, they needed to grab an all-star power forward to go with all-time great center. They didn't need to do it, but they did it. And what LeBron showed KD is we can do that, too. I'm going to take Chris Bosh. Me and Wade and Chris Bosh are going to do it. KD said, bet. I'll just go and join Golden State. Oh, those aren't the rules? Bet. I'll make my own team. Me, Kyrie, and Harden. What's the difference between him doing that and a GM doing that in L.A.?
I understand that. But what I'm trying to tell you is that the players themselves are the ones on the court competing. I'm not saying that the GMs, the executives don't compete out there. And I'm not faulting Sean Marks, who I think is doing an outstanding job. And I'm not faulting the Brooklyn Nets. I don't blame you. You could be all over me if I was doing that. I would do the same thing if I was them. LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin gave up about $20 million to get there, okay? They gave up about $20 million to end up on the roster.
An expensive ring.
Exactly. There we go.
They're buying an expensive ring.
They're buying a ring. But what I'm saying is I'm not knocking Sean Marks, Steve Nash, Mike D'Antoni. I'm not knocking an organization. That's what you're trying to do. The players themselves, you are on the court competing, and I had 5. Count them. 5 players text me this weekend. Oh, that's what we doing now, Stephen A.
It's anti-competitive, basically.
Because they're saying it's anti-competitive. They're like, and you can guess who some of those are. They're like this. They text me. That's what we doing now, Stephen A. That's what I'm saying.
That's why Kawhi didn't go to the Lakers. Kawhi tried to compete against LeBron.
You know, that might make that I might have to rethink Kawhi because
speaking of the number 5.
Yeah.
The Nets have 5 players with at least 5 All-Star appearances, so that's pretty incredible. Only the Celtics did that back, that 2010 squad. Fellas, let's leave it there. Everyone's trying to get a chip.
Molly, repeat that.
Okay,
5 players.
So there's 5 players on the Nets with at least 5 All-Star appearances. There's only one other team in history that did that, and that was that stacked Celtics squad back in the day, 2010, 2011. Everyone trying to get a chip, no clouds in my stones. Fellas, let's keep it rolling. Let's get to the team they faced in the West, who you just mentioned. Defending champs, the Lakers making moves of their own, adding Andre Drummond. Stephen A., where did he go to college? Can't remember.
I can't either.
Was it Columbia?
Whatever.
Oh, no, wasn't Columbia.
Drummond was posting 17 and 13 per night this season. You know what it is. Max, what do you think Drummond means to the Lakers?
It means, I mean, look, AD's got to come back. You can't just not. But AD doesn't have to be 100%. Now they're going to get out of the West. And part of that's going to be because what happens over the next month. This Lakers squad did not have enough to win very many games, as we could see, right? Schroeder is their best player by far, and they just don't have enough firepower to win. And LeBron and AD are going to be out for a while longer. What Andre Drummond can do in the meantime, guys, he's probably going to average, just walking onto the club, 20 and 15, right? Something like that, because where's the scoring going to be from?
At least 15.
Yeah, he grabs a lot. So, like, I don't want to, I know advanced analytics can tell you, but his impact on the game is limited because of X, Y, and Z. But he can play basketball. He's good at basketball, and he's big. So you have not a 7-footer, but somewhere in that area of a guy who can score and rebound and help keep your head above water while you're waiting for the superstars to get back. That'll improve their record. And then, when they do get back, Drummond either gives you great minutes as a backup 5, or you play AD at the 4 with Drummond at the 5, and you have twin towers. The Lakers will get out of the West, provided AD's at least 80% of what he normally is.
I totally agree with you there. There's no argument here in that regard. Let's understand something. Andre Drummond in his career, 13.8 rebound per game player. 13.8 for his career. For his career. I'm looking at his numbers, Max. This dude has been in the league 10 years. The only time he has not averaged double digits in rebounds is his rookie year. The only time. The only time.
He messed around and get you 17 boards a game.
This dude is a rebounding machine. And so when you look at it from that perspective, and a career 53.8% shooter from the field, shot about 49% in his 2 years with the Cavs. But, you know, he plays around the basket. He ain't trying to take jump shots or anything like that. Rebounds, putbacks, that's what his specialty is. So when I look at it from that perspective, and your primary offensive players is LeBron James, along with Anthony Davis, and you're kicking it out to shooters, and you have a guy like this dude who's capable of giving you cleanup duty. And oh, by the way, of the 13.8 rebounds he's averaged in his career, Max, offensive rebounds, 4.7. 4.7. Right. So you're talking about a guy the extra possessions cleans up. That's a huge, huge deal, particularly when you consider the number 1 team in the West right now is the Utah Jazz with Rudy Gobert. When you've got that as a consideration, when you've got the Joker as a consideration in Denver, when you've got Nurkic coming back and what have you, if you've got an additional big body, somebody who's physical and prioritizes rebounds, and getting you extra possessions, and more importantly, limiting other teams from getting possessions because he's snatching those boards, that puts more in those boards. The bottom line is you look at the Los Angeles Lakers, and I definitely think the acquisition of Drummond secures them coming out of the West for this season, assuming that Anthony Davis is going to be about 80% or better. Especially after Denver makes the move, and there are other teams that make moves. But there's another way to look at it that's kind of like from a broader perspective. The Lakers didn't have enough starting caliber players. Yep. They have 2 superstars, Schroeder, and no one else is really a starter. KCP is not quite a starting caliber player. Mm-hmm. He doesn't do any one thing well enough to start, right? Does a lot of things well enough to come off your bench. Kuzma's not a starting quality. Like, he's a rotation piece for sure. Right. I'm not dissing him. Like, he can play, but he's not a starter in the league. Drummond's a starter in the NBA. Yeah. And Schroeder's a starter. Now all of a sudden you look at the Lakers and you go, it's not just that they have 2 super duper stars.
They have other guys who are starting caliber in their rotation. Montrezl Harrell.
Here's what makes it interesting. They're sending a message. You're not beating us in the interior. You're not doing anything against us. If you're going to beat us, it's going to have to be from the perimeter. Yep. Now, we look at the Clippers. For the most part, they're a perimeter team. We look at Phoenix. We look at Utah because of their ability to shoot threes, even though you got Royce O'Neal and Rudy Gobert anchoring their defense on the perimeter and in the interior. Offensively speaking, even though Rudy can give you something, they're primarily a shooting team. You're going to have to be able to hit perimeter shots in order to beat the Lakers. I don't believe that's going to be enough to beat LeBron James and Anthony Davis unless you are Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving. So that is the only shot, as far as I'm concerned, that anybody's going to have to take out the Lakers.
Yeah, like what someone brought this up. I'm trying to remember who it was on the radio, my radio show, Max Kellerman Show, 2 p.m.
Yes,
Eastern.
2 p.m. Eastern time.
Radio. Yes.
2 to 4, right? 2 to 4 Eastern time, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes. LeBron and AD cause such matchup problems for everyone because you take a guy, you mentioned Royce O'Neal, excellent defender, right?
Excellent.
The problem with LeBron and Rudy Gobert, the problem with LeBron and AD is that's not a matchup for LeBron and AD. These dudes are 6'8" and 6'11", and you need O'Neal to be 6'9" or 6'10", and you need two of them against the Lakers. The Drummond move is a strong move post-deadline for a team like the Lakers to make. I think it solidifies them in the West.
Get it. Drummond has 44 20-20 games, guys, 29 more than anyone else since he entered the league. The Lakers did drop to 4th in the West right now over the weekend. We got plenty more to come here on First Take. Of course, we're going to talk about the tournament, fellas, but don't go anywhere because we got the